Hi, Gugu.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. I feel to get straight into it, I feel like you have such a great backlog of female directors you've worked with. Um, Amma and Phillida and Jessica and Gina. And I suppose, how did Kate then now compare to that? And what is it about? Is there something that female directors might do a little differently to male?
Well, as Amra Sante always says, and I always remember, female directors are not a monolith. But that is so true. I think, Kate is wonderful and wonderfully herself, and she's been so brilliant on Loki. I mean, she's just has completely built this new world of the TVA, and she's so passionate and detail oriented and really, really great with actors. So yeah, I mean, I sort of have worked with so many female directors now that I don't really sort of think about the fact that they're female. I mean, they're just directors to me, and they're also different and brilliant in their own individual ways.
So this is as much as it's an American production, it's a very British set. How was that, having so many home comforts with you while shooting it in Atlanta, I suppose,
It
with
was
all the people?
wonderful. Even our first camera operator was British as well, which is so special. And it really was sort of like a little England in Atlanta for this time, which became more and more comforting as time went on, in 2020, filming in the pandemic, all of us away from home, it was lovely to hear so many British accents on the set and in the makeup trailer. And just, I think also because myself and Tom and Wumi also went to the same drama school, at RADA at, similar times. So we had a lot of shared experience to bond over.
So gossip, you had a lot of gossip. Remember this one?
It's comforting, and you feel like you've got a good foundation behind you. I think when you feel like people in that way before they were famous.
So it's a new character to MCU, but the name Ravonna Renslayer is someone that's already been out there in the big wider Marvel universe. How much is what you're doing something totally original, and are there any links back to that characterization that's already been out there?
Well, I think that's the liberating thing about us embarking on the TVA, is that it hasn't really been seen before on screen. And so for me, how it was always described to me when I first came on board was that this was sort of more like an origin story for Ravonna Renslayer. So in a way, that took the pressure off of having to sort of bring along everything that was already in the comics, because what we were doing in Loki sort of predates that. But it's also exciting because it means there's so much potential, for her to go other places, and of course we're dealing with time with the TVA, and there's just so many layers to it. So yeah, there's lots of potential for her future.
So did you immediately watch all 22 films in order, or did you get the Spark Notes?
I did go back and watch the films, and some I'd seen, but I hadn't seen everything, and self-confessed, I'm not the biggest, Marvel expert. So for me, it was sort of the most fun research you could have, really, is just, getting out Disney Plus and just watching movie after movie, which was really, really great. So yeah, for me, it was a joy to be able to catch up on the things I hadn't seen.
Did you have the famous Loki lecture by Tom Hiddleston?
The now infamous Loki. Yeah, I actually had to go back to the UK for a couple of weeks because I was doing publicity for a film called Misbehavior, which came out around the same time that we were starting. So I missed the Loki lecture because I was in London, I think, at the time. But I've heard it's become legendary. So I'm sure there'll be, he'll have to redo them or do a podcast on them.
You'll just get the PowerPoint presentation. It'll be fine. Send it. I think what's, from my understanding of TVA, is that a lot of them, they've just, their whole sole purpose is to look after this timeline. So whereas obviously you've got that little bit more backstory. So I wonder what's your understanding of, like, I suppose, I don't know how much you can tell me either, but how is it going to play out as this kind of like new institution with the MCU, like especially when it looks at like identity. I think identity is part of the season, like when you've got, when me playing a character has got a B15, like different names, whereas you've got an actual name. Like how does it, is there going to be, do you feel that your character arc does deal with like the identity and finding a place, especially as like you're a judge, you're in charge, but also I saw the bit where you grab your stick and you're like, I'm ready to go. These are kind of, so I'm trying to understand a bit more about what, how she identifies in this world and how the TVA identifies in the wider universe.
Yeah, I mean, that's the cool thing about the TVA. Obviously stands for the Time Variance Authority, and at the very tippity top of that is the timekeepers, who are sort of these overlords of time. And then we have the sacred timeline, which is what we're all working to protect at the TVA. And, you know, as a judge, you know, Renslayer is sort of grand mistress of the sacred timeline, you know, and also, you know, she worked her way up. She did come initially as a hunter, which is what Wumi's character plays, B15. He was a hunter in the military too initially, and so Renslayer does have a fighting background. And as you see when she grabs the time stick, you know, that there is a moment that she's sort of now her status is almost too high to sort of really fight that much, but when needs be, and sort of dust off her old military skills, which is kind of fun, and we do get to that point. So yeah, that's really exciting.
Do you get to do a lot of, did you need training? Did you have boot camp so you could play like?
Yeah, we all did together, which was really nice, you know, at the beginning of the show, and you know, rehearsals and stunt training. And for me, that's just a joy, because I love, you know, I came from a dance background. I love the physicality of fight choreography, and we just had the best stunt team on this. And it was nice also just to get into the physicality of the character and figure out how would Renslayer move, you know, considering she's now in a suit, she's high up in status, she's not a scrappy fighter, you know, she's a very precise, sort of really elegant, precise, and sort of lethal fighter, but she doesn't waste her energy, you know, and so that was kind of fun to sort of come up with a physical language for her as well.
And maybe Owen Wilson and Mobius just gives good vibes to everyone, because I think he's just good vibes personified, but felt like there was like a little bit of sexual tension between you and Mobius. Is there something
Maybe. I mean, I think that's the fun thing about their dynamic, and, you know, obviously working with Owen Wilson, who's such a gifted, you know, comedic and playful actor. And I think, you know, the way that we've always established it is that they know each other really well. It's a very long standing friendship. And I think, you know, they do have somewhat of a soft spot for each other, but the truth and the reality is that Renslayer is his boss, and she's in charge, and she's got a lot on her shoulders in terms of responsibility from the timekeepers. So you know, I think because he is a bit of a maverick, you know, he's probably knows how to get around her a little bit more, because they know each other so well. But at the same time, you know, she's got to stand firm, you know, for you know, her professional facade. So it's kind of a fun, playful dynamic.
And obviously the MCU's been around for a very long time. I suppose, how come this is like your first entry point? I was like thinking, like, wait, you haven't been in another one before, have you? No, okay, sorry. I was like, oh my God, so many people have been in these MCU. But like, what, I suppose then, has this been the first opportunity? Like, had, you know, been points in the past where you've been like up for potentially joining? And if not, you know, how come it's not, you've not been sooner? It seems like you should have been in it. So there's
been a few misses, but I suppose it would probably be indiscreet or inappropriate for me to go into too much detail, but for me, I feel like everything happens for a reason, and, you know, in the right time. And I certainly feel really happy about taking on Renslayer, because I think she is, you know, powerful in her own right. You know, she's not sort of a love interest, she's not a damsel in distress, you know, she's worked her way up, and in a way I've worked my way up, you know, in a different way in the industry as well. So I relate to her in a different way, and I like the fact that there's a complexity to her, I think, that maybe wasn't around in some of the things that I'd been you know, either offered or auditioned for in the past.
Do you think it's inevitable that every kind of actor of a certain level who's done enough is going to end up in a superhero film?
I mean, I think it
or a TV show?
Yeah, I think it depends what you want to do. I think nothing is inevitable. I think that, for me, I had a great time working on Fast Color, which was directed by Julia Hart, which was a completely different type of superhero genre film, not related to the Marvel universe at all. And I think there's room for everything, and for me, this was a great moment. And as I say, knowing Tom, knowing this character, and a departure from any other character that I've played before. So for me, it's really just about being challenged as an actor and getting to do lots of different things.
Yeah, and I suppose then, I mean, I know you can't really tell us too much, but like, are you aware of how much it sits within the other, kind of how much this is going to inform other narratives and how much it sits within the already other Disney Plus series?
I mean,
because I'm like, look, that's Mephisto. Yeah. We're going to have this. It's going to be all that.
I don't know. You'd have to ask Kevin Feige and those our timekeepers of the Marvel universe that have the full plan in their heads. I know my aspect of it, but I couldn't begin to understand how it all could ultimately fit together with
yeah, like, just give me the script. But did you get him in order, or did you film it in chronological order, or is it like different ones?
No, we sort of cross-shot everything because we had all the sets. There were certain sets that had to be done in a certain time period. But then, you could be filming something from episode 1 in the morning and then episode 5 after lunch. There was that sort of, because we had one director and everything, happened pretty much on sound stages. So it really was, we probably shot 5 and 6 a bit later, but everything else was sort of mixed together. So, yeah, it was good to have we had all the scripts from the beginning.
And it seems from speaking to Kate that, because I think the MCU is known for doing a lot of green screen, a lot of CGI, and especially in those other films, it's like they don't know what's actually going on in the scene because it's actually. But was it quite? What was it like? The practical effects seemed to be a lot part of it. A lot of how you were making it. I wonder, how is that experience working on it? Did you have these expectations going in? It's like, oh God, I'm going to have to act to a tennis ball.
Yeah, which I have done on Doctor Who, but it's funny because I think what was wonderful was that we had real practical sets. I mean, for me at least, it was very little, I was interacting with real people and real everything was real and tangible. I think there is a tangible nature to the quality of the TVA, that it is that 50s modern thing. People do have those old sort of Android keyboards, and there is a sort of retro quality to the TVA, which meant that everything was very tangible. There were a few moments of blue screen, but they were much more to sort of, without spoiling it, but to fill out the wider scope of the horizon or something. It wasn't like we were sort of acting in a green box or anything. We were acting on real sets and amazing production design.
Oh, amazing. Well, thank you so much. It's been so great talking to you.
Thank you.
Have a good one. Yeah, bye.